Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I was kind of smurfed up that link I put in. It's the scientists and their blog. I linked you over in the comments section there. It goes that way sometimes. I put it in twice. But anyway, the scientists and their blob, and that's the link right there. It'll take you right over to the song. Yep, that's a good link. We got a poll. Should Taiwan hold a referendum on food from Japan's nuclear wasteland before removing restrictions? Should Taiwan have a poll? Now, they recently just had a poll on a week ago, on the 23rd of August, nuclear referendum. Not a poll, rather, but a referendum. So this was a story from today. By the way, I'm Dana. I'm here somewhere. You can call into these shows at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. Since 2011, Fukushima nuclear accident, Taiwan has blocked imports. So since 2011. And this story was today, September the 1st, 2025. So they said since 2011, and water was never mentioned back then, right? Had blocked imports from Fukushima, Ibaraki, Tochigi, Guma, and Chiba for nearly 11 years. So they waited 3 years before they put a restriction on the food from the. So they're talking about rice, they're talking about peaches, they're talking about fruits, they're talking about. And what was interesting about that is these prefectures surround Tokyo. This is not Fukushima and surrounding prefectures. This is Tokyo and surrounding prefectures. Well, not Tokyo, but the surrounding prefectures of Tokyo. They just removed restrictions. So they're saying that's the end of the restrictions. Now there's no more restrictions, which meant that they removed Fukushima prefectures before they removed these after removing Fukushima, the nuclear wasteland itself. So why would you would think Fukushima prefecture where the nuclear event has taken place, not that they should remove it, but you would think that would be the last prefecture that was removed, not alongside the Tokyo prefectures. My apologies, I meant to turn it down, but it happens. Our planet doesn't deal with radiation, Darren. We have an extinction event. All the whales are emaciated. How can you say the planet deals with radiation? All the birds are emaciated. All the species. How can you say our planet deals with radiation? Don't answer that one. There's no answer for it. Nuclear referendum and artificial intelligence, Taiwan energy gamble. Let me just fudge this a little bit. Just this story, I got to kind of zoom in. This is really interesting, really important. A nuclear referendum, August 23rd, last week, showed how little this registered with voters, many of whom neither seen the long game nor grasped the stakes. Why would they grasp the stick? She didn't explain it to him. Yes or no, yet most never showed more than 2/3 of those who did favor restarting the nuclear plant. It turned out fell short of the legal threshold. There was only less than 30% of the voters turned out, the lowest in Taiwan's so-called democratic history. It's not so democratic. When you had a referendum in 2020 to ban food from Fukushima, it was 74% of the population showed up and voted no. So I would imagine they just didn't count the votes because they didn't want nuclear to get another big fat black eye. And don't think for a second that nuclear doesn't have that kind of sway. According to Fortune's Business Insight, the global artificial intelligence market was worth $233 billion last year, and it's supposed to be $1.8 trillion a year by 2032, growing 30% a year. And you add that AI-driven data centers are the fastest growing tech sectors, and it's not for good purposes, it's only for bad purposes, with spending up to 40% annually over the last 2 years. Spending. They don't spend any money on geothermal. They throw all their money at fusion and small modular reactors that don't even exist. Do people really understand what this means for Taiwan? Silicone shield. Why would you quote Greenpeace? Why, in goodness gracious, because they're pro-nuclear disguised as anti-nuclear. Electricity demand for AI chip making between 2023 and last year increased by over 350%. Greenpeace is disgusting. In response to a referendum, voters support to restart the nuclear power. Even President William Lai said the government would not rule out advanced nuclear under stricter conditions, making a thing of the ruling party's long-standing platform of a nuclear-free homeland. So they said they wouldn't rule out small modular reactors that don't exist. But how about geothermal? Why would you put nuclear in Taiwan? Have you seen the earthquakes that country actually has? Buildings, skyscrapers tipping over? Multiple times over the last couple of decades. That's the worst spot to put nuclear. That's why they're getting rid of nuclear in the first place. Taiwan eases food restrictions to risk-based checks after years of strict controls. There was no control in Taiwan. What Taiwan done to their population is unconscionable. They had a referendum to ban nuclear. Right, they had a referendum to ban nuclear food from the Fukushima prefecture surrounding wastelands, nuclear wastelands. And so the referendum ran out in a lousy 2 years. 74% of the population in Taiwan showed up and voted, no, we don't want food from a stupid nuclear wasteland, don't ask us anymore. They didn't. So 2 years later, instead of having another referendum, which is absurd, that a referendum like that can only last 2 years when the radiation lasts for millions, they decided just with a quick handshake, they would remove the restrictions. No more referendums because they lost the last one. When Fukushima happened, there was over 2,000 university students pro-nuclear. The academics, the alumni, nuclear companies, nuclear power plants, all of them participated. There was like 2,200. Scoured the internet, and anybody that was worried about Fukushima, they got in the comments section, said it was like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and climbing mountains, flying on airplanes. And then anybody that put up a fight, they brought in 10, 15, 20 of their puppet sock accounts to just drown them out. The Taiwanese nuclear community is scum of the earth. They really are scum. They're just low-life degenerates. They're not a redeeming quality in the entire country when the pro-nuclear community. Nothing. Man. Not going to do this to me, are you? Darren Emmons says, Japan oysters can clean up the Pacific now. What are you freaking talking about? Have you seen the last 7 freaking videos I posted of all the whales are emaciated? You didn't see any of that? It's an extinction event. Fuck off my channel, man. You piece of shit. Don't come back to my fucking channel again. Sayonara. Don't come back on my site again, buddy. Over the years, you've done this to me so many times, I'm getting sick of it. Smarten up. Get a fucking life and get an education while you're at it, you moron. Taiwan will remove dual certification. Of course they will, they're pro-nuclear to the bone. And 100% batch inspection of food from Fukushima. So 100% batch inspection from Fukushima, but the other prefectures are going to double check them, are you? Don't come to my fucking site and put shit in my comment section when we're doing hard work for over a decade straight. Don't come in and ruin things that I built. You didn't. I built this site. I built the audience. I put all the information together for over a decade, non-stop, dedicated to this, 365 days a year. You're going to come in my comment section and put spam. You're going to disappear. And every comment you ever put on my site disappears when I do that to you, by the way. I'm not going to tolerate it from anybody. You don't have a right to come here and put fucking propaganda in my comment section. I work like a dog to tell the truth. Okay? You're going to disrespect me. That's the best way to do it. You low-life pro-nuclear degenerates. And 100% batch inspection on food from the nuclear wasteland. So they're going to remove all the restrictions. Why would you remove restrictions from a place where they picked up 30 million one-ton bags in just farmland alone of topsoil that was incredibly radioactive, of 100,000 atoms per kilogram minimum. A lot of it is 20 million atoms per kilogram. They only looked at cesium, and allegedly, how could you say you only looked at cesium? Clearly, you didn't look at nothing. It was 100% public relations. You're growing food right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation. That's from the Japanese Times, the biggest media in Japan, trying to normalize it. And neighboring prefectures, the Drug Administration said Friday, the Food and Drug Administration, really. The lowest forms of life infiltrated by the nuclear industry are now worthless. The agency said it will return to source-based and risk-focused checks per CNA. How many times did Taiwan go there? Taiwan went there a few years ago, legislative members, not to do real research, but there to promote the nuclear industry. Say, look, they got it all under control. When they can never get it under control. It's nuclear meltdown, for goodness sakes. Since the 2011 Fukushima accident. This is not an accident. You built it on tectonic plates, less than 100 kilometers from tectonic plates. Well, you know, you got a 3,000-year legacy of tsunamis over 300 feet high. Why would you build it there when you knew this? And then you know the prevailing winds blow it to North America immediately. Taiwan has blocked imports from Fukushima, Baragi, Chiba, Guma, and Chiba for nearly 11 years. These are prefectures that are far away from Fukushima. So you already removed the restrictions from Fukushima, you just didn't remove it from those prefectures because the population is too complacent to look it up themselves. The pro-nuclear community, like we've covered the last referendum in 2020, it was disgusting what the pro-nuclear community had done, right? Michael Schellenberg was down there throwing money around to the pro-nuclear community so they can get out and confront people on the streets, in the subways, at buses, and in the universities. They stirred up a whole bunch of pro-nuclear degenerates, funded them to win the vote, and he lost it by a massive margin as it was. Now that the rules were gradually eased in 2022, 2024, now we've covered it all as has been taking place over the years, combining dual certification with batch inspection. There's no inspections. So the Health and Welfare Minister said 49 of the 53, it was 55, not 53, 55 countries that restricted Japanese food have lifted their bans. They didn't lift it. It was a politician that lifted it. It was a pro-nuclear scum that lifted the restrictions. Not the country didn't want the restrictions lifted. The people in the country didn't. Just because a politician does it doesn't mean the country sanctioned it. You really think that didn't happen? You really think there's no adverse side effects from that? You really think that's not catastrophic? With only China, South Korea, and Russia maintaining partial or full restriction. The way I understand it, there was 20 countries out there with restrictions, not 3. I just happen to cover it 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Maybe I don't know anything. From February 2022 through July 2025, authorities inspected 21,700 batches from 5 prefectures. And they added that 263,000 batches checked in the last 14 years all met Taiwan's and Japan's safety standards, which were increased immediately post-Fukushima to absurd numbers, with 0 failures reported. Really. You had 0, and no food with radiation showing up in your country from Japan. Really. You actually closed the schools there because of radioactive fallout. That administration has some moral compass. This administration is just pure hideous and monstrous propaganda, unmitigated propaganda. 0 failures. Really. Like, there's nothing more worthless than the pro-nuclear. There's nothing just more hideous than the pro-nuclear scum. There really isn't. They can't open their pie holes without insidious lies, coordinated typically by the degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency. Officials, that's like literally the worst thing you can call somebody. You give them a job and they call them an official when their job is to destroy the health of the country. Said the change will allow consumers greater access to radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland while ensuring only safe items reach the Taiwanese. Now, how are you going to do that when you removed all the restrictions? Why would you take food from a nuclear wasteland in the first place? Let me go backwards for a second. 2016, 30 million tons, and they're talking about bags. Every 3 years, you got to change the bags into 30 million one-ton bags. In 2016, they had 30 million. Today, they only got 14 million. The other 16 million got lost in the mail or something, was it? 16 million one-ton bags got lost in the mail. That makes perfect sense. In 2019, they had 140 or 105,000 sites. In 2016, it was 150,000 sites of one-ton bags, and they didn't look like this. Right? And they kind of covered in green sheets. The bags are not squared or round. Fukushima will start burning radioactive waste, 100,000 atoms a kilogram to be incinerated. You can't destroy it. All you can do is liberate the radiation back into the environment, and they did. £1 billion to be burnt in just that one story. There's a lot more than that. So I repost some of my videos up at my BitChute channel, Dana Durnford on BitChute. Environmentalist Dana Durnford on BitChute. Why all species of whales emaciated after Fukushima radioactive fallout. Why all species of whales are emaciated after Fukushima radioactive fallout. So somebody put in the comment, bullshit. Do you think we're stupid? Well, the evidence is in the video. That's why I posted the video. The video is a 2-hour video with all the documentation there. Go after that. Don't call me stupid. Challenge the narrative that I got there. Challenge the documentation that I got there. If there was radiation, every single thing in the ocean, which is almost dead now, by the way, and I'll show you that in the video, and most of the world would be dead, but they're all poisoned. It takes quite a while because you're so far away for the poison to eventually catch up to you. But we're seeing massive now heart, liver, lung, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia explode worldwide post-Fukushima. And deaths associated with all that. God, you people are stupid. And below it is the same guy, no doubt. This is fake. You can eat radiation and it won't hurt you. This is a Galen Windsor video that's been out there traveling around. He died of brutal cancer, by the way. And he used to brag about how he was just a normal guy and the scientists got him out there doing it because he was so good with the narrative. He wasn't good with the narrative. You watch the video of him. And I've had people, people saying, I need to challenge this guy or I'm full of shit. Like, shut your friggin' pie holes. I will challenge him now because this is fake. You can eat radiation, it won't hurt you. Like, what are you talking about, man? And so the video before that, they'd done the same thing to me, but I decided to screen capture this and just cover it tonight. This is fake. You can eat radiation, it won't hurt you. And then the same idiot shows back up and says, exactly. They think we're stupid. If there was radiation, every single thing in the ocean, most of the world would be dead. All the birds are emaciated and dead. Except, 46 million migratory birds are missing here. We're on to, for goodness sakes. The biggest migratory seabird run on the planet. All the whales are emaciated. I've done 7 videos. I posted them all up at BitChute. All the evidence was right there. You didn't challenge the evidence. You just come in and call me names. The lowest of the lowest. You think we're stupid? They think we're stupid. This is fake. You can eat radiation, it won't hurt you. And so about a week ago, the Galen Windsor video I noticed was being posted all over YouTube on very popular channels with the YouTube community. Very popular channels are posting that video. That's quite interesting. Seeing as I've been posting here for 5 years. None of them are posting my videos, not a single one. None of them are taking a single clip out of one of my videos in 5 years. Not a single person on BitChute has ever took one of my videos and chopped a chunk out. And I provide all the documentation for my assertions in every show. It's a brutal amount of work. It's a brutal amount of work that I do here constantly. And I'm under siege the entire time. And then, of course, these sites don't have any videos. And they come in and they denigrate the things that I'm doing. Like the video has the evidence that I put up there. I'm not like the rest of BitChute. Don't provide any documentation. I provide it all. Taiwan to lift, this is today's story. Taiwan to lift Japanese food import restrictions. September the 1st, 2025. The moron, shit for brain, Taiwanese government said Monday, begin a 60-day public comment period, as if that matters. Why don't you just have a referendum? You just had a referendum for nuclear power. Why not have it for nuclear food from a wasteland? Oh, that's right, because you lost the last one. 70% of the population, 74% showed up and voted. and lifting import restrictions on Japanese food imposed after 2011. It's not a triple meltdown, just 4 meltdowns. So the minute you hear the word triple meltdown, you know you're dealing with a scumbag. Anybody says the word triple meltdown, you're dealing with a scumbag of unconceivable proportions. How many people think they're in reactor 4? How many people think that they're 150 feet above the building over there besides Durn? How many people think they're 150 feet above the nuclear stump to your left? How can Taiwan say that didn't happen? And in Taiwan, when they call it triple meltdown. They don't even put an S there. Currently, Taiwan, I think because the S is meltdowns with an S is blocked worldwide. See, that's why we see that constantly happening. Currently, Taiwan requires certificates of origin, which, like, what are you talking about? Certificate of origin? Japan has an incredible history of shipping their food to the other side of the country and then labeling it from Osaka or somewhere else. For all Japanese food and radiation test reports for products, why would you let the criminal itself check the food? Why don't you check it yourself? But then again, right, the nuclear community in Taiwan is just rotten to the core. They're literally the death of Taiwan. They're the people now that are responsible for all the autoimmune diseases in Taiwan because food has been caught illegally in Taiwan from Japan many times. The most worthless humans are the people that work in the government industry and is in radiation sectors of food quality and stuff like that. We've seen every country with that exact attribute. And nearby, well, Chiba's right alongside of Tokyo. Guma's right alongside of Tokyo. Guma's actually past Tokyo. Well, there's Tokyo. If you go straight up to number 140, you see Guma. But ultimately, what you're looking at is Ibaraki. All of these prefectures are surrounding Tokyo. They're 200 kilometers away from Fukushima, for goodness sakes. Fukushima's 200 kilometers north. So they already moved those restrictions, right, acclimated people to that, and now they're going to remove the final restrictions, which is by Tokyo. Why would Tokyo be the last places to move restrictions? It was 240 kilometers away. Why is that the last place? It's just an idiot. The whole industry is full of scum and idiots. Incredible education. They make a ton of money, so they seem like a normal person. They got all kinds of big, beautiful houses, and they got families and cars and trucks and cabins out for the winter and skiing and everything. But they're literally monsters in every shape. Figuratively, these are monsters. They got no redeeming qualities whatsoever. And the industry is counting on those people existing to protect the industry. It doesn't make any sense, right? And I'm the only person out there showing you documentation, trying to have a conversation. Oh, and let me go backwards for 1 second to that bit shoot. That bit shoot, the night before they were talking about 5G. They were saying it was 5G that was killing all the species. And I don't have it there tonight, unfortunately. Not radiation, Dana, it was 5G. That's what they were saying on my video, the video before this one, right, that I posted at BitChute. I just got no patience for scumbags. Nothing. I got zero patience for these. I've been dealing with them for so long. These are all by Tokyo. Those restrictions are expected to be fully abolished. Meanwhile, random radiation checks will be conducted on imports. In other words, nothing. Zero. Zilch. No, we're going to randomly check food. Don't worry. You hired us to protect you, so we're going to do that by not protecting you, by removing all the restrictions from the nuclear wasteland first. In your face. You're literally an idiot if you live in Taiwan. You're a moron if you live in Taiwan. Your government is so rotten, you don't get it, you're going to kill your children with radiation poisoning and everything you covet and everything you love. No, I'm okay, I'm special. Radiation can't hurt me, Dana. I know, I heard that 1 billion times now. After the period, those restrictions are expected to be fully abolished after the period. Meanwhile, random radiation checks will be conducted. Oh, I'm sure they will be. This is a story I was supposed to cover last night. Japan nuclear plant started pumping out radioactive water. Like, what are you talking about? So this story was from April 19, 2011. This happened March 11, 2000, so 5 weeks later. So 5 weeks later, to pump workers, you mean the homeless and the destitute. You ain't talking about nuclear scientists, you would have said nuclear scientists. You would have said nuclear companies. You're talking about homeless and destitute. Had begun moving highly radioactive water. How are you going to move highly radioactive water when you have 4 reactors and 8 fuel pools detonated all over the site? How are you going to get back in there? How does that work? Because no matter how stoic you are or brave you are, your organs are going to melt. And you're going to die from that exposure. It's not an opinion, that's a fact. This is the 15th. How are you going to go in a month later and suck up water from nuclear meltdowns? This is absurd to suggest you could. Each liter would have been multiple sieverts. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose, will melt your organs. How can you have even a little tiny bit of skepticism with all the documentation I bring people? To a storage facility from the reactor. What storage facility? Like, what are you talking about, you crazy? You couldn't do nothing on that site. That site was abandoned, for goodness sakes. And they were sending in the homeless and destitute, and they dropped dead constantly. To a storage facility from a reactor at the Japanese nuclear power plant, which was badly damaged. Damaged! Like, first off, they had 4 reactors and 8 fuel pools. Each fuel pool could have had 4 reactor cores, most likely did, because they don't have a repository. But even if just reactor 3, Medusa, was the only reactor that blew up and caught fire and blew up and lost its inventory, you still couldn't get near that site. You're talking about just up to 1 million sieverts around that site, that area. You can't work there because you die right away. It's like a rifle shot from a sniper from 1,000 feet away. It simply can't be done. And the last thing you can do is go in and get water. That was the last thing they considered, the last thing they even considered today. There was no water ever put into the tanks. The tanks were all built in 2013 to manipulate you. A typical operator would fill up all of those 1,000 tanks 6 times a day under normal operation. What do you think is going to happen? Now, and the water that they were spraying on it was equal to a garden hose, a 3/4 inch garden hose, split 4 ways. So each one of those would have been on each reactor. Like 140 tons a day of water. This is their official version. And they were saying that back then they were filtering the water and then respraying it back on the reactors. These are blatant lies. And the world's going to sit there in silence and let them get away with it. The friends and families of these nuclear communities are going to sit there and let them lie and destroy everybody because they're cowards too. Removing the 25,000 tons of contaminated water that is collected in the basement of the Fukushima Daiichi plant. Well, look, what are you talking about? 4 weeks later, you think really they're going to take 25,000 tons? You think that's what they're worried about? You think they're worried about 25,000 tons of water with 4 nuclear meltdowns and 8 fuel pools detonated? Probably a total of 36 reactor cores spread over the entire planet, but that ground zero would have been insane. Shows steam, right? Steam. It's not steam. It's the fuel burning, for goodness sakes. Number 3, which was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor, will allow the homeless and the destitute / workers to access to the reactors. Like, what are you talking about? They still can't get access to it today, 14 years later. This is the disgusting, despicable, evil media. Your media is so evil, people just refuse to acknowledge how evil it actually is. It's evil to suggest any of this was real. And to restore the cooling system. Really? Are you going to restore the cooling system at a building that doesn't even exist anymore? How does that actually work? And you got any idea how many stories we got of the media saying that exact narrative? Tokyo Electric Power Company, which runs the plant, has said that it would take up to 9 months to bring the situation under control, which had been leaking radiation ever since. Does this look like it's leaking to you? It ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools full of reactor cores out of the buildings, which poisoned every species and human on the planet. Destroyed the oceans worldwide and the fresh water worldwide. Like, the odds of seeing a fish jumping in a lake here in Canada anywhere is zero. The odds of finding a whale that's not emaciated is zero. All the great whales will be gone by next year from starvation. They were emaciated and starved to death last year on the 12,000-mile migratory run south. No babies survived that run. They had very few babies, by the way, because they were so starved to death. Now they're headed north, and it was acknowledged when they left Baja, California, Mexico, rather, that they were severely emaciated. Of course they were. 14,000 dead post-Fukushima out of the 27,000 population. 13,000 left, and all of them are emaciated. You can't have like half of them emaciated and the other half healthy or even close to it. They all eat the same food, so they're all emaciated or they're all healthy. That plume model is only based on less than 30 days, covering the entire planet. Like, you had reactor 4 has never been included in any statistics whatsoever. The official story was they got all the fuel out of the pool and everything is hunky-dory. I apologize. I get a little passionate about things because I work like a friggin' dog to have a conversation. This was in Belgium. We've seen a similar story from New Zealand about a month ago. The same thing where the whale was so severely emaciated, and the other pictures, you can see the peanut head. You can't see it in that picture. The peanut, you can see the shoulder blade sticking up. Well, you can see the peanut head right there, the concaved. That's what you call a peanut head. You can see the rib cage sticking out of the body. You can see him completely deflated. And you see the sharpness of the spine going down into the tail. These are all clear signs of emaciation. You should never, under any circumstances, see a rib cage of a whale. All the gray whales, you can see the rib cage and shoulder. All the gray whales look just like this. You really think they're going to be around in a year or two? Because they have 9 inches of blubber, they have fat. So they can survive for a while, but then eventually, like we're seeing now, consistently, for quite a few years, there's 14,000 died post-Fukushima. We're seeing these same attributes in all the whales, by the way. It's not just the gray whales on top of that. It can't be. And the gray whales really like the bases of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestration chain. Japan's nuclear crisis is uncharted territory. This is 2011. This is March the 14th, 2011. Uncharted territory. think that was France 24, which is the government media in France, right? We've done a whole presentation on France 24. You should look it up and see all the headlines we covered. The lies that they put out, now I only covered a fraction of it, and it took 2 hours or more. But it really gives you insight in how evil a media can actually be. Japan's nuclear crisis and Fukushima showed us all media is evil, period. No exceptions. There was dissenting voices originally, but they disappeared because evil takes over eventually. Japan's nuclear crisis in uncharted territory. Japan rushes to avert a nuclear meltdown. This is on the 14 reactor 3 is already blown up. And to show you reactor 3 blowing up, they're working to avert a nuclear meltdown, a nuclear crisis, Dana. They show you a picture of reactor 3, the Medusa, the plutonium mixed oxide reactor detonating. I tried the video. There was no video, of course. That's typical media. The cooling function stopped and the water levels fell at the number 2 reactor. What are you talking about number 2 when number 3 is showing a picture of it? So they're trying to get you to look at number 2 because number 2 was one of the few reactors that looked like they stayed intact. Number 2 reactor is the second reactor. Right between reactor 1, which detonated, lost its fuel pool inventories immediately, and reactor 3, which detonated, lost and ejected its reactor core. So right between two of them, that's the one they're worried about. Okay. How can you stomach the nuclear industry for 2 seconds? How does that actually work? After the explosion number 1 reactor and another explosion number 3 reactor, and of course they're going to try to blame it on hydrogen. The explosions are caused because the reactors are 1,000 pounds per square inch, the pressure vessels. And so they need a million gallons a minute, 4,500 tons a minute. They need 6,450,000 tons of water a day. So to put it in perspective, think of 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks in a 24-hour period of water. It needs 70 of them a second. Or it goes from 1,000 pounds per square inch to several thousand, then it detonates. And that's what happened there. This is not hydrogen. If this was hydrogen, that would be a big, like an eruption, kind of like a nuclear weapon going off, where you have this big, huge fireball. It didn't do that. You're going to have a spark there because there is a lot of hydrogen, but it didn't have that particular attribute. This had the attribute of a pressure explosion, a pressurized explosion. And when you watch the video, you can see the reactor cores ejected right out of the buildings from the fuel pools, which could have 8 reactor cores per building, and most likely did, because you didn't have a repository anywhere on the planet. So number 1 and 3 is already detonated, and they're worried about number 2 in the middle. We're worried about that one, not worried about 1 and 2. They're going to call that a hydrogen explosion, and the reactor containment was fine, Dana. Just, you evil, disgusting maggots, you cowardly, disgusting parasites on this planet. But the blasts were not thought to have blown the main reactor vessels. Really, why not? You ejected the reactor core and the fuel pool right out of the building. Completely undeniable. And every academic on the planet, the nuclear industry was aware of that. I'm not going to apologize for being upset that we're killing the planet and pretending that the nuclear industry has a single redeeming quality. It's absurd to suggest the nuclear industry has any right to exist whatsoever. It's absurd. It's your mortal enemy and the enemy of 8 million species. And you better stand up for this planet because the planet needs somebody to stand tall. And this entire planet now have turned their backs on, everybody on this planet has turned their back on common sense and is letting the nuclear industry get another toehold. The industry is like Martin Frackler, remember him? He came out at a nuclear forum. He was the editor for the New York Times, I believe it was. And he came out and said, what do? Do you cover it up? do you?
My name is Martin Fackler. I'm the Tokyo Bureau Chief. And the title, as we just heard, was Challenges and Opportunities After the Fukushima Nuclear Disaster, this crisis management. And the question of what do you tell your public? You know, I mean, do you tell them that there's a serious nuclear accident, or do you play it down? Do you try to cover it up?
But all the journalists were having that conversation. Like, how could you even say something like that? Do we cover it up? Do we say humanity doesn't deserve to fight for its future? We should cover it up. We're journalists. That's what we should do. That's what they always do. Taiwan lifts 11-year ban on food imports from 5 Japanese prefectures. Now, this is 2022. 11-year ban in 2022, which is 11 years later, on imports of food products from Fukushima and 4 other prefectures. So they removed the restrictions from Fukushima in 2022, and they removed the ones by the farthest ones away that they had the restrictions on by Tokyo in 2025. Fukushima should have been the very last prefecture who would remove restrictions, and the 4 surrounding prefectures. Right, they were all around Fukushima prefecture. They got removed in 2022. Do you get the significance of that? Do you get the reality of what I'm saying here? So they removed all the restrictions. The industry, the only way you can describe the industry is insane. It's nihilistic. So Taiwan moved from Fukushima and 4 other prefectures in 2022, 3 years ago. And now the prefecture is far, far away, 240 kilometers away. They're going to remove, they're the final ones. We're going to remove, now everything is safe. It should be the opposite, right? So Taiwan recently decided to lift its ban on food imports from Fukushima in 2022. And then removes these 3 years later far away from Fukushima. You can barely wrap your mind around that kind of evil. That kind of madness. This is literally madness. That had been in place for 11 years. From Fukushima and 4 surrounding prefectures. Has maintained an import ban on foodstuff from Fukushima, Ibaraki, Tochigi, Guma, and Chiba prefectures, with the exceptions of alcohol. That is made from fermented radioactive rice. There are still some negative feelings towards Japan's food products, particularly in Eastern Asia. Negative feelings, where you picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radioactive fallout. And just the farmland, the other 97% of the prefecture you didn't touch. China has all food products except rice from Niigata Prefecture, the Noto Peninsula, right alongside the Ichikawa Prefecture. And animal feed from you're going to feed animal radioactive food because that's going to pass on to whoever consumes it. All marine products from South Korea. What South Korea done to everybody was disgusting. It's just disgusting. Fukushima, they still had a ban on spinach, plums, chestnuts, and kiwi fruits. South Korea imported over 6 million pounds in just the first couple of years from the nuclear wasteland itself. Hong Kong has a ban on import bans on vegetables, fruits, milk beverages, powder milk. So why put all the emphasis on the milk but not on the vegetables and the fruits? And Macao, vegetables, fruit, dairy products, meat, processed meat, eggs, marine products, processed marine products. What about rice? Why would you let rice in your country? Because most of the farming in Japan is rice. Fukushima Prefecture still produces 1 billion pounds a year of rice, and so does surrounding prefectures. Revitalizing cherry trees in Fukushima. Right, so these people don't know anything. Bless their hearts. But they're going to end up poisoning millions of people, and they'll never know the difference. And the media, of course, is going to put them on a pedestal. It's in a nuclear wasteland. How can you be that complacent? Apparently it's normal. Complacent is the thing. If you're complacent, the media will be happy to tell your story. If you're an idiot and you go into the nuclear wasteland and work on food because you're a moron, you don't know nothing, you believe the propaganda, the media want to meet you, put you up on the front page, and make you a hero. Earthquake and nuclear accident. Nuclear accident gets 2 words. So that came out today. I watched the video. It was disgusting. Just like the nuclear industry. It's disgusting. Taiwan to lift all remaining imports restrictions on Japanese food. They removed the restrictions of the most lethal areas 3 years ago. And now the area is far away, 240 kilometers away. Now they're going to remove them and everything is good. So have a nice day. Get on down, buy your radioactive food from the nuclear wasteland and support. Stupid. Taiwan to lift all remaining import restrictions on Japanese food. Right, here you got your couple of sellouts, a couple of morons. Get their picture taken. Everything is good. Go back to sleep. Taiwan's authorities have announced a plan to lift all remaining import restrictions on the nuclear wasteland imposed after Fukushima. And you notice all of these stories that came out today and yesterday, none of them mentions the fact that they removed Fukushima and surrounding prefectures 3 years ago. I had to go back to a 2022 story to show you that information there a little while ago, right? The truth is not allowed to exist. Only the perpetual propaganda of the nuclear industry is allowed to exist. And then all of these people ultimately ends up poisoning their loved ones, their children, themselves, their friends, their families, their communities, all the species. And that's all great, as long as the truth never gets its socks on or its boots on. Taiwan Health Ministry officials said on Monday that the items from 5 prefectures will no longer need to be accompanied by test results for radioactive material. This is 2022. Plan A and Fukushima food import rules properly assessed, officials say. That's from today. Didn't we already cover this? Taiwan plans to abolish special rules on food imports from the Japanese nuclear wastelands. 5 Fukushima prefectures from Japan. Fukushima doesn't have 5 prefectures. Fukushima is a single prefecture. It's called social engineering, what you're looking at, amid radiation concerns. But officials say Monday the decision was scientifically assessed before being published for a 60-day public consultation. French Polynesia ended its special measures taken to restrict imports of Japan's food last year, leaving only China, South Korea, and Russia still banning. The way I got it is there's 20 countries still have a ban on it, not 3. Citing data that showed all the batches were perfectly safe, everything. Never got a single bad one. Fukushima United Football Team unveils Japan's first all-wood stadium plan. And they're going to use the wood from the nuclear wasteland where they couldn't clean up, so-called clean up. You can't clean up after nuclear accident anyway. In addition, they're going to collect rainwater in a nuclear wasteland as filtered for reuse. They're going to reuse radioactive water from a nuclear wasteland. All water now is tritiated because of the massive releases worldwide. Let's go backwards. 2011. Japan crisis rattles. Now, we covered this last night, right? We didn't cover it all. Japan nuclear has been something of a sacred cow in France, but the nuclear crisis in Japan is, in the wake of last week's earthquake and tsunami, has raised concerns even in the pro-nuclear wasteland, or pro-nuclear disgust. France is despicable. Every pro-nuclear country that's got nuclear power, these are just vicious scum. The media, the public, the nuclear academics they roll out are just heartless, soulless, spineless creatures. Despite French President Sarkozy, who was brought up on charges after he stepped down, that departing from reliance on nuclear energy is out of the question. The ongoing drama around Japan's Fukushima drama. You have 36 reactor cores melting down, and 4 reactor buildings and 8 fuel pools. And who knows if the Fukushima Spent Fuel pool lost its inventory, or Reactor 6. The ongoing drama, for the first time, causing some tremors in the nuclear industry, often described as a state religion in France. Fears from Japan that even the safest reactors not protected from forces of nature are checking French hopes for a world nuclear renaissance as a form of clean energy. How can nuclear be clean? Nuclear plants are not designed to handle all kinds of problems. There's an understatement. The fuel pools are hemorrhaging radiation 24 hours a day. There's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide full of nuclear fuel splitting atoms into your environment. This is crazy. French energy officials first described explosions at Fukushima's Daiichi nuclear power station as an accident, not a catastrophe. This is really interesting, by the way. Even as the French embassy in Tokyo advised the French nationals to leave the city, not a country. But with number 2 reactor at Fukushima facing a full or partial meltdown, see, how do you have a conversation when they do that to you? Right? We've seen that stunt in so many stories. It's really something. On both sides of reactor 3 or 2, on one side of reactor 2, you had reactor 1 exploding. On the other side of reactor 2, which is right alongside it, was reactor 3 explosion. But no, don't worry about that. Let's worry about reactor 2. André Claude Lacoste, president of the French Nuclear Safety Authority. I got video of him there, actually, on Bloomberg. It drives me batshit crazy. Rated disaster as a 6 on a scale of 7. International Atomic Energy Agency originally rated it as a 4. So they looked at 4 reactors detonating and said, well, that's only a 4 on a scale of 7. So why are they even allowed to exist? Why isn't there 100 million people showing up wherever there are 2 each day and trying to chase them off the planet? Because if you understood what has happened, that's what would happen. The worst humans imaginable. Entire nuclear core and the fuel pools ejected into the environment. It wasn't just the reactor core. You're looking at the fuel pools being ejected out of there. It's a steam explosion is kind of right? It's a pressurized explosion because the reactor cores are at 1,000 pounds per square inch normally. And once they start heating up, because they're not getting 4,500 tons, a million gallons of water each minute, they're going to increase to 2,000 or 3,000, and they're going to blow up. That's the explosions we're seeing, right? So yeah, steam excursion, a steam explosion. The degenerate, disgusting, never-ending parasitic International Atomic Energy Agency originally rated it as a 4. It's just unconscionable that they even call themselves human. It's unconscionable that they even exist. It's unconscionable. It's the worst thing that ever happened to humanity is the UN and their subsidies exist. It's the worst thing. Still, he said at a Paris news conference today that Fukushima was worse than 3 Mile Island. Really? 4 reactors detonating at the one time is worse than 3 Mile Island. That was nice of you, you piece of shit. You perpetual scumbag. Why ain't the world mad? Why isn't the world standing alongside of me shoulder to shoulder, angry and upset and trying to kill this industry? Just chase it off a cliff and don't worry about the results, for goodness sakes. As Japanese workers struggle Monday to overcome blocked vents, nobody's struggling. Once reactor 1 fuel pool detonated, there's no going near the reactors. You had no power. You had a tsunami run through the bloody site. The media doesn't show pictures. I show you pictures, but the media doesn't show you pictures because then you get it right away. Then the story doesn't work, right? The propaganda doesn't work when you see pictures. This story is insane. And I'm fighting every day so the world can have some kind of hope or maybe even a future. And the people out there that could help me and work with me, right? All the alternative medias and the big bloggers will not. If they mention Fukushima, like they done with the radioactive shrimp from Walmart, they regurgitated word for word the stories. No, there was no. And you see there are other videos where they go right down the rabbit hole trying to break down the story and show lies. But with the Fukushima story, all they done was regurgitated the exact same words. It's unconscionable. We're going to lose the planet. All the gray whales will be gone by next year. One more year at the most, but I don't know how they're going to last another year. 2 years straight, severely emaciated. I can't see how they can survive another year. When you look out from the shoreline, you see emaciated. You see their shoulders, blades sticking up. You see the peanut heads. You see the rib cages sticking out. You see the spinal column sticking out. No fat, no blubber, no meat on them whatsoever. If that doesn't affect you, what does, I wonder? Bear with me. I want to go to war. We should be going to war against this industry. I would like nothing better than have a big foundation support me so I can get to war on this industry right now. We are running out of time. We should be gone to war. And we're not. This is absurdness. Piece of shit industry. There's not a single person in the industry that is, you don't have to triple check whatever they say. And it'll always be a lie. No matter how many times you check it, it's going to be a brutal lie. Hang on. A Japanese worker struggled Monday to overcome blocked vents in order to flood the number 2 reactor. How are you going to flood number 2 reactor when you got meltdowns on both sides of it, multiple fuel pools detonating on both sides of it? Like when the tsunami ran through the site, that meant you destroyed everything. Have you ever seen a flood go through a community and see what it looks like after? You really think a reactor is some magic elixir that can withstand something like that? As the Japanese workers struggled Monday to overcome blocked vents so they can flood number 2 reactor with seawater, like seawater is going to help you. Areva CEO, which went bankrupt in France, of course, and he insisted that Japan is not going through a nuclear disaster. Really, he's not going through a nuclear disaster. Entire nuclear core and the fuel pools ejected out of the buildings. That's not a disaster. Reactor after reactor and fuel pool after fuel pool detonating in just 5 days. No disaster. We're French. We're better than everybody. Fuck you. We're better than everybody. We are facing a very significant natural disaster in Japan with an earthquake followed by a giant tsunami. A natural disaster followed by an earthquake and giant tsunami. So calling a nuclear meltdown a natural disaster, but it's not a nuclear disaster. No, it's a nuclear disaster, you disgusting parasite. And their market shares had dropped 9% on Monday, day 3. So she was out there, no, don't sell your shares. It's not a disaster. The ultimate worthless human conceivable, eh? Amano, who died suddenly, thank goodness, the chief of the International Degenerate Atomic Energy Agency, yesterday insisted Fukushima reactor is not comparable to the Chernobyl reactor, where the core melted in 1986, saying the development of the accident to one like Chernobyl is unlikely. Really? That was after reactor 1 had blown up and reactor 3 had already blown up. And that's not comparable. These are massive reactors. Each reactor core is at least 100 Chernobyls. They're pure uranium, pure plutonium. And then the media, instead of asking somebody who's reasonable, puts a piece of shit like that, the International Atomic Energy Agency, on a pedestal. And then expects you to treat them nice when you see them. Treat them with respect when you see them. Why would you treat anybody in the media with respect? How can you be that naive? How can you be that gullible? I get too passionate, do I? Because we got an extinction event playing out. I should be screaming every show. It's too hard on the throat to scream. In a follow-up statement Tuesday, Amano, the disgusting parasite from UN, said a containment vessel for number 2 reactor may be compromised. He called on the Japanese authority for more information. May be compromised. Number 2 is that building there. Reactor 3 is completely gone. Reactor number 1 is completely gone. Well, let's worry about number 2, Dana. What would he have said if only reactor 3 had detonated, I wonder? Oh, okay, have a nice day. Each of these buildings got 8 reactor cores at the top of them, and they're gone too. And this planet better get its shit together because you're in real trouble. Life is not going to go on. Life is just going to get worse every day. Your loved ones are dropping dead of the strangest cancers we've never seen pre-Fukushima. The massive increases in heart disease, lethal lungs, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline. Like everybody in every species on the planet is producing radioactive hormones and radioactive stem cells because of that pulse event at Fukushima, Japan. And there's nobody on this planet has a right to sit in silence. Nobody. The containment vessel for number 2 reactor may be compromised. He should have been put in jail for the rest of his life for saying something like that, disarming the entire planet. Anti-nuclear. So if you're a good person, you're anti-nuclear. And you're not going to get a voice. Voices are heard. Fears of radiation levels in Japan of further aftershocks, tremors, ongoing fires, evacuations, and an inconclusive outcome have given standings to the nuclear opponents in France. The nuclear opponents, how come the journalist is not a nuclear opponent? How come the journalist is not anti-nuclear? They're often marginalized in the public and the media. Not often, they are, period. They got to label you, right? And therefore now you're a target. For being a good person, for being an honest person, for having a moral compass. Japan's officials stay indoors. Nuclear leaks are now dangerous. Stay indoors. It's a lose-lose situation. Like we've covered the Harvard University MIT University, I think it was Stanford, on the anniversary this year, March the 11th anniversary, and just after it. And the lies they told everybody in the first couple of weeks are just unconscionable. Japan officials stay indoors, nuclear leaks. So when a building blows up and ejects the entire reactor core right out of the building, that's a leak, Dana. In a normal world, most of these people that said that would get the shit kicked out of them. Leaks. And the thing is, if you took the person who wrote the story and tried to bring them there, they'd claw your eyes out because they know it's not a leak. Japan officials told the international degenerate, disgusting, parasitic, gross, sick and demented, it's nihilistic and genocidal, omnicidal IAEA, that radioactivity is being released directly into the atmosphere. An official wearing a protective suit. How can you call it a paper suit or a Tyvek even? How's that going to stop gammas and neutrons and betas and alphas and X-rays? It can't. It was 6 foot thick lead and they still have a hard time. How is a paper disposable suit going to do it? It's a protective suit, Dana. How can you just have nothing but contempt for your media? How does that actually work? Japanese officials now ordering 140,000 people in the nuclear wasteland to stay indoors, seal their doors and windows, get sick and friggin' die to protect the nuclear industry. Prime Minister Khan took to the national TV to say the radiation is spread from 4 damaged reactors. It's very candid, very unusual for them to mention reactor 4, because that's what they're talking about, number 4. It's March the 15th, day 4. Japanese officials told a Vienna-based disgusting parasite, IAEA, that radioactivity is being released directly into the atmosphere after a fire broke out in the storage pond for spent fuel at one of the 4 reactors. They're talking about reactor 4. Don't worry though, they changed their mind a few hours later. MIT actually said it was an oil leak at one of the pumps for the fuel pool. They put the fire out. How are you going to put a fire out at reactor 4? How does that actually work? Just ask the media. They all said they're on top of the building. Everything's perfect, even though there's zero possibility they were in Japan. And years ago, I used to see people were all the time in comment sections saying, "Oh, they were in the Daiichi plant, or they were in reactor 5 or 6 fuel pool, Dana." No, they weren't even in Japan. There's 70 identical reactors in the United States. And when you zoom in on these reactors, any kind of wording were redacted, right? They had blocked it out because it wasn't in Japanese. It was in English. The fire was extinguished earlier today. There's zero possibility, and let me show you a picture of what it looked like in that first couple of weeks. That's reactor 4 up there. Do you really think that was put out? That fire was put out? You really think somebody went there and put that out? Yeah, reactor 3 right alongside of it detonate. Before reactor 4 blew up, it looked like reactor 3 looked like that. This was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. I'm not here because it's easy or because it's fun or because I'm bored. I'm here because I'm desperate for this planet to have a future. And that's why most of you are here too. Same reason. So the fire was extinguished on March the 15th when you had reactors all over the place detonating, was it? That's pretty cool. That's a pretty neat trick. Of course, it's absurd to suggest they were. A fire broke out in a storage pond. These are not ponds, these are borated water, these are demineralized water, these are special facilities. They boil off 120,000 liters a day without any accidents. And the fuel that's in the pool, which is the reactor cores for decades, is splitting atoms. So every liter is a sickening amount of radiation being released into your environment through evaporation. There's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. Each day, let me bring up the calculator. It was more than 1,000, but so say there's 1,078 fuel pools worldwide, and each pool is boiling off 120,000 liters. Each liter is hundreds of billions or trillions of atoms, because the fuel in the pool, the reason it's boiling off is because you're producing so many atoms from splitting atoms, and you're creating all that heat. That's how they boil water for millions of homes, right? But the stuff that's in the pool is no longer under 1,000 pounds per square inch temperature. So let's divide that, this is per day, right? So let's divide that by 4 to get gallons. Not that you need it, I guess, but it's 32 million gallons a day. Let's divide that by 55. You get a 55 or 45 to get a 45-gallon drum. So that's 718 million or 718,000 45-gallon drums a day. Let's multiply that by 365 days. And then multiply that by a decade, by 10 years. And each liter is billions and trillions of nasty isotopes that never go away. So each year is 2,600,000,000 45-gallon drums. And each 45-gallon drum is catastrophic amount of isotopes that's boiled off every year worldwide. That's just one way they're polluting the environment. And almost every single nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms as far as you can see. And so every farm is going to be incredibly contaminated. And it can't be an accident that every farm, every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. That can't be an accident. Should Taiwan hold a referendum on food from Japan's nuclear wasteland before removing restrictions? Well, why wouldn't you? You just had a referendum on keeping the nuclear power plant they closed, reopening it rather. So why wouldn't you have a referendum on this? Because you got beat down on opening up a nuclear plant again, and you just couldn't stand the thought of getting beat down on another referendum that you know you would have lost. And you know that'll wake up the population a bit more each time. Now we're talking about levels that can damage human health. No, that was right away we were talking about that. You weren't, we were though. These are readings that taken near the area where we believe the releases are happening far away, the levels should be lower. Of course it should be lower, but still lethal. Like this is an unprecedented event where you lost 8 fuel pools. Each fuel pool could have had 4 full reactor cores and probably had more. And then 4 reactors. So a total of 36 reactor cores. Each reactor core is equal to at least 100 Chernobyls, because it's pure uranium, pure plutonium. It's a massive reactor core compared to Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a new reactor. It was a small reactor. It had no fuel pools. The difference is incredible. That's from 1,000 fuel pools we were talking about earlier, worldwide. The Chief Cabinet Secretary, Idano, the disgusting Idano, And the lies he told, he admits he never slept for 3 days. He gave hundreds of TV and radio interviews, hundreds and hundreds in 3 days. He slept for a couple of hours. He took a couple of operas and he went back at it again. Please do not go outside. Please stay indoors. Please close your windows. Because they didn't want dead people in their homes that the nuclear industry all of a sudden wouldn't be able to explain away. Don't turn on your ventilators. Please hang your laundry indoors. So he's clearly talking to people who don't have any concept that they shouldn't be there in the first place. Like if there's any trouble, you need to pack up and get out of Dodge. Take your pet with you. Go to the old age home if your loved ones are there and take them with you. And get out of Dodge. And if everything's fine, find a house somewhere else and don't go through that again. Until now, Japanese officials said radiation levels at the plant were within safe limits. Again, right? Perpetual, endless, relentless lies from every direction. The Japanese officials originally rated the situation at the plant in Fukushima as a level 4 on a 7-point scale. It's not conscionable they've done that. They've done that for months, by the way. Downplayed every facet of it. Zhashko, the chairman of the Non-Regulatory Commission, told the House Energy Conference Committee, we played those video clips and the whole video many times, that water used to cool the spent fuel at the plant had evaporated and the radiation levels there are thought to be extremely high. In fact, he said they were lethal levels. Extremely high. It was actually, right, we got the unredacted emails. Water used to cool spent fuel at the plant had evaporated. If the water evaporates, and it will, water needs to be circulating or it heats up so it evaporates much quicker. Once the fuel is exposed, even a little bit, it's going to catch fire. But it doesn't need to be exposed to break down. It just needs to heat up. And so when you haven't got water circulating, it's going to heat up and start denigrating the zirconium cladding on the fuel rods and the pellets. If they're exposed at all, they catch fire. The oxygen touches the zirconium, it immediately ignites. Then those kind of temperatures around 1800 degrees, it doesn't need oxygen, it'll burn underwater. So it'll evaporate the rest of the water immediately. I just can't handle the lies all these years. Sometimes it gets to me. The Schiffer brains from Australia didn't help me. With increased radiation being measured as far away as 175 miles away in Tokyo, and some experts calling this the worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl, the worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl. It makes Chernobyl look like a paper towel. Just saying. Residents and officials want to know about the risk of radiation exposure. Don't go turn to your universities, to your media. Good luck on getting anything sensible out of those idiots. Those traitors, those anti-human scum, those anti-species scumbags. By Saturday, the cooling system in Fukushima Reactor 1 and 3 had failed, and the coolant began to evaporate from heat in all 3 reactors. The reactors are they're already at 1,000 pounds per square inch, right? They need 6.45 million one-ton pickup trucks every 24 hours. So they don't get the water, what's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? The pressure is going to increase from 1,000 pounds to 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 maybe, and then they're going to explode, and that's exactly what happened. If there were hydrogen explosions, you would have seen a massive fireball, because we have the footage, and we did see like a little flash because there was hydrogen, clearly it was melting down. That creates the hydrogen. And many academics originally had made that determination that the meltdown is causes the hydrogen. The hydrogen is evidence, rather, that it's melted down. The meltdown created the hydrogen. And you see that to reduce pressure. So starting the cooling system in Fukushima 1, 2, and 3 had failed. No, they failed as soon as the tsunami struck. The earthquake struck. When the tsunami came in, it wiped out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles of coastline and infrastructure up to 10 kilometers inland. There wasn't no telephone poles left standing for hundreds of miles in any direction. They're dependent on external power. All nuclear power plants, like for a nuclear power plant, It's totally dependent on external power. It can't run on its own energy. It needs each reactor, not all reactors on the site, but each one of them needs 6.45 million, 6,450,000 one-ton pickup trucks of water every day. You have any idea how much energy we're talking about to move that much water? So each nuclear plant is dependent, and that has 6 reactors, all with that same attribute, by the way. And so imagine how much energy it takes to move 36 million one-ton pickup trucks in 24 hours. Think of it that way, right? Think of, like, if you're in front of your house and you're trying to cross the street and there's a nuclear plant up the road, and instead of water coming through a pipe, it came by a one-ton pickup truck. You're talking about 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks going past your front door each minute. Imagine your car is parked on the other side of the road. And that's going to run for 50 years. How are you going to get to your car? How much energy does it take to do something like that? 1,440 minutes a day for each of the reactors, by the way, not just one reactor. But there's 6 reactors there with the exact same attributes. The steam was vented. How are you going to vent something when everything is detonated around you? You have no power. You had a tsunami run through the site. How are you going to vent something? How does that actually work? I don't know. I don't know how it works, Dana. No, I know. How are you going to go in and vent something when a tsunami ran through your site? This is Fukushima site. Do you really think that there's something working there when that ran away, when that finished, just doing whatever it's going to do? Does anybody really think that's how that plays out, how that actually works? Yeehaw. I get a little passionate sometimes about this because I'm offended by an extinction event. That offends me, right? Hopefully it offends you too. I shouldn't complain about views on my site. So I look at James Luce's site, and he's posted a video 4 hours ago, and he's only got 7 views. I'd probably lose my mind if I only had 7 views in 4 hours. There better not be a nuclear scientist within 100 miles of me because I'm going to go looking for him. I'm just saying, I don't mean it. You don't have to get gag orders against me because I said it. Because you've done that to me before. Anything to punish me, right? James does all the music, all the videos, all the graphics. It's a lot of work to put each song together on top of that. Like, it's a crazy amount of thought that has to go into it. And then the equipment that he's using is top notch. Like, he does everything right. And he gets 7 views in 4 hours. And like the song we started off with tonight, there's certain songs I'll play because I want people to really appreciate the amazing music that man actually produced and has at his site for free for everybody. He's a legitimate company, by the way. Corium Records, he's a registered company. A music company on top of that. He's done everything that you would expect a professional to do, and then some again, and then some again. It's pretty offensive when I see him with only 7 lousy views. It's insanity. I can understand why. The nuclear industry has got to be terrified of him. Which released the first trace amounts of radiation. First traces. No, reactor 1 blew up, for goodness sakes, originally. We're not talking about traces. See, these stories are from 2011, the first month or so, right? This is day 5. This is the same day as they're saying only trace amounts got here, look. No, they don't show you pictures, of course. You see, well, sometimes they do, we notice. Like one of the stories earlier, they show you a picture of reactor 3 ejecting the reactor core and the fuel pools right out of the buildings, and they said, well, we're worried about number 2, not number 3. Which is a look over here, look over there routine that we've covered how many thousands and thousands and thousands of times just in the last decade. That same day, reactor 1 experienced a hydrogen explosion, which released more radiation. This wasn't a hydrogen explosion. This was a pressure explosion from the reactor vessel. Just was at 1,000 pounds per square inch, never had any cooling, and so eventually the pressure rose to 2,000 or 3,000, but did not crack the containment vessel. Now the explosion was from the containment vessel detonating, and then it ejected the fuel pools. So the fuel pools now are exposed to oxygen, and so of course, as soon as you see the word cesium with an A, you know the British nuclear industry is involved. That's like the worst case scenario when the British nuclear industry gets involved. They're the definition of ghouls. They're actually ghouls. We've covered so many of them for so long that the monsters are real, and the majority of them work in the nuclear industry, I've noticed. On Sunday, Fukushima Reactor 3 was vented again, at which point there was believed to have been a partial meltdown in the reactor. Really? On Sunday. Let's have a look at Reactor 3, see if there was a partial meltdown. Oh, yeah. Well, the reactor cores were at the top of the building. There's no top to the building. The fuel pools were at the top of the building. There's no top to the building. Gee, I wonder what that means, Timmy. Steam rising from number 3. It's not steam. If you were Tarzan, you swung through that so-called steam, you don't come out the other end because you drop dead. It's just getting in proximity will drop you dead. Such a horrible story, eh? There's no redeeming quality in the nuclear industry, nothing. A company spokesman stated the radiation released thus far did not pose a health risk. A company spokesman said it, did he? Later that day, the cooling system in Reactor 2 failed. More radioactive steam was controlled release. How are you going to control release anything when a tsunami ran through? You had no power. You had detonations going off around you. There's no one can survive because your organs melt. Doesn't matter how stoic or brave or stupid you are, you still can't go in and do that job. And there is nothing to work with. You have no power. Lethal doses everywhere. The concern is that the radioactive steam, and I just despise these people, will eventually fall back to Earth and contaminate food and water supplies. Well, like this. On Monday, number 3 reactor experienced a hydrogen explosion, blew the roof off the containment vessel. That's not blowing the roof off the containment vessel. That's ejecting the reactor core right out of the entire building. And everybody's lulled into complacency. Not everybody, but the majority of people are lulled into this complacency. And of course, the nuclear industry has made sure that the average person has no way to conceive it. They've been bombarded since childhood with SpongeBob, and then as they got older, they got bombarded with Spider-Man and the Hulk and the Simpsons. And so the average person who's going to quote anything about nuclear is going to quote those. I'll give you an example of the... So you see this is Reactor 3 over there. And this is what it officially says it looks like, by the way, 2019. And that, you see, that's the top of the building. So you see the walls of the building. You see those big those big steel structures. They're not steel, they're aluminum. They're vents. They were added a decade or two later to vent hydrogen from the building so it doesn't have an explosion, right? And so there's nothing there. There's nothing there to create this plume. So what created the plume? Because there's just tin and metal, right? There's nothing there to create a plume. What created the plume was the fuel pools and the reactor core being ejected right out of the building. It catches fire immediately. And it burns at enormous temperatures immediately. And when you watch the video, you see the plume getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the fuel is ejected out, and as it gets into the oxygen, it catches fire, and it burns at such a rapid pace, but the emissions cover the entire planet. That's the madness of the story. And the nuclear industry has so many useful idiots. It's just like a never-ending circus of useful, educated idiots. They're very educated people, but they're the animosity equivalent of just a useful idiot, because they're doing it for a paycheck, and then they're turning their back on their children, their friends, their families, their communities, every species, and the entire planet. That's just a useful, so it's hard to comprehend, because there's no other emissions. This is a model of 23 days of radioactive fallout from the French government, not a model, but a study. A spike of 10 million atoms of Cesium-137 per cubic meter of air covering the entire planet after 24 days. All the models and all the studies show these same attributes from all the major shakers and movers worldwide. But gas and oil and coal emissions, first off, carbon doesn't pulse energy at the speed of light every second. You have an invisible snowstorm of atoms. So think of a snowstorm where each snowflake pulses energy at the speed of light every second. Now triple it up, the snowflakes. Now you're starting to get a handle on what nuclear actually is. And nuclear pulses energy almost at the speed of light every second. Cesium-137, each of these atoms in the snowstorm covering the entire planet, based on a fraction of the inventories that were actually lost. Not even a fraction of a percent of the inventories, by the way. They refused to acknowledge reactor 4 lost its inventories. They refused to acknowledge reactor 3 to your left lost its inventories. They're not going to be in that model, for instance. This pulses energy 600 feet every second, a single atom. Imagine the whole planet is covered in stuff that's pulsing energy 600 feet every second. Now you can see why the birds and the insects and everything are disappearing. The fire was extinguished at the storage pool, holding spent fuel rods. No, it wasn't. Does that look like it was extinguished? It's grainy because it was the original footage. Idano, the disgusting parasite, please do not go outside, please stay indoors, please close your windows. With radiation close to the reactors measuring 4 times higher than the maximum allowable limits of 100,000 microsieverts per hour. Again, this is absurdness to suggest that it's only 100,000 microsieverts per hour, because you ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools right out of the building. We know, if we got headlines, I can show it to you if you want me to, of over 1 million sieverts. 3 sieverts is considered lethal. 3 sieverts would be a lethal dose. 6 sieverts would be a brutally quick lethal dose. 20 sieverts, we're talking about 1 million. Because you ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools right into the buildings. And you pretend that you're at the top of a building in both reactor 4 and reactor 3. This is reactor 3. Where they're pretending they're at the top of it. And I'll show you reactor 4. Here we go. Here's reactor 4. They're pretending at the top of that building. Here's reactor 3. They're pretending at the top of that building. Neither of these buildings actually exist to your left. That doesn't exist, and that doesn't exist. And neither will we soon, just like the whales. We're in real trouble, and we're not trying to face the monster. We're not willing to challenge the monster. We're not willing to have a conversation. How many radio shows I've done in the last number of years? None. You know how many people reached out to me to do a radio interview in the last 5 years? None. You know how many alternative medias are out there? Millions. You know how many of them are covering this story or any other stories that I cover? None. Do you know why they took my pension away from me 2 months ago? I don't know. I can't imagine. But evil is so real. Listen to this story. As of Monday, when reactor 3 blew up, the plant was emitting as much radiation in 1 hour as it would normally would in 6 months. So refusing to have any kind of acknowledgement of what was happening. Oh, well, there's more radiation released in 1 hour than it was in 6 months. This person should be in jail for the rest of his life, or in Japan, because Japan has a death penalty. He should be getting the death penalty. According to the degenerate, disgusting, perpetually evil International Atomic Energy Agency, the possibilities that a large amount of radiation has been released is low. No, it was a perpetual releases. The pools have far more radioactivity than the reactors and do not have the protection of a containment building. A nuclear engineer and president of Anti-Nuclear Power Institute says damaged reactors are less likely to spread the vast amounts of radiation than Chernobyl did. Really? Like, everybody should be happy that I'm upset. At least somebody on the planet. I know a lot of people that are watching this are just as upset as I am. But everybody should be thrilled that there's somebody out there that's actually have humans' emotions, appropriate human emotions. I get indignant, like, when I see lies anyway, but it's even worse. Because we're looking at an extinction event. And I've done 7 videos in the last 2 weeks on the extinction video, and every single whale, every single bird, every animal, everything I showed you for 7 shows was emaciated. How do you pretend that's never happened? That's not happening. How do you pretend that doesn't friggin' matter? How do you pretend this is not an extinction event? To the pro-nuclear community I'm talking to. And clearly, I'm never yelling at anybody that's rallying with me or is anti-nuclear per se as I am, or understands just some of the details. I'm talking to the pro-nuclear community that are monitoring me all the time, and they acknowledge they're monitoring the anti-nuclear community 24 hours a day. They have 1,000 public relation firms to stomp me and you out. Because evil is real, and there's 1,000 companies out there full of evil people that will do whatever they can to stop you from having a conversation, stop me from having a conversation. But a spent fuel pool fire could very well produce damage similar to or even greater than Chernobyl. Well, yeah, they all blew up by day 5. Not day 6, not day 7, not day 8, day 9, day 10, day 11, day 12. But by day 5, they were all blown up. All the fuel pools were gone. This is March the 15th, for goodness sakes. Day 4. You can't erase the facts of what we gathered up. You can't erase that. And then when you look at it, if you show up on my site and you look at these presentations, these videos, I mean, it's not rambling. I don't ramble. I've been doing this so long, right? I still can't get over the fact. I still can't get used to it. I'm still not acclimated to perpetual lies. I still can't handle it. I still don't find it acceptable. Dr. Edwin Lyman, a nice name. His last name is perfect, right? Lyman. He lies, man. A physicist with the Union of Unconcerned Scientists, which were created just after the Manhattan Projects. And if you know about the Manhattan Projects, one of the few, like, there's so many things they've done that was evil, like just the states, for instance. You know, Russia done the same thing, Mayak, and China done the same thing, and Israel, and everybody else done the same thing. But what they done at Hanford nuclear site, the reservation, I don't know why they call it that because they stole it from the natives, right? It's 580 square miles of nuclear wasteland. There's 41 miles of unlined trenches there where they dumped 450 billion gallons of liquid sludge. This is the sludge that's still splitting atoms because this was the initial concept. They didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't know what it was. They knew it was lethally dangerous, and they knew they had to get it away from the population. They couldn't build a bomb. So they dug 41 miles of unlined trenches and dumped the nuclear waste, the splitting atoms into those trenches where they're still there today, which is equal to 1.4 million of the tanks that they got there, they spent tens of billions of dollars trying to figure out what to do with it, the 177 tanks, but yet they dumped 1.4 billion of those tanks into the soil, 1.4 million of those 300,000 gallon tanks. 450 billion gallons is equal to an aquarium of nuclear waste splitting atoms, 6 feet wide, 518 feet tall, wrapped around the entire planet. But don't forget, everything can fit in a swimming pool, right? This industry, right, they got all these cliches. They've been putting, like a banana on a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and climbing them out and flying on an airplane or sleeping next to somebody or in a kayak for 15 minutes. And they got all these propaganda pieces, and every decade you'll see the different academics graduating, coming out and screaming those lies to the top of their lungs. Same lies over and over and over for 80 years. Dr. Edwin Lyman is just a maggot on humanity. He's a parasite of the worst magnitudes on humanity. As that a plutonium particle found in MOX are far more harmful than other emitted elements. Just the elements from typical fuel pool emissions, the fallout around the typical nuclear power plant 24 hours a day from the fuel pools is catastrophic, by the way. And they're all surrounded by farms. But that fallout, just a single atom, is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. If you take that material and put it through a chain reaction a second time, it's hideous. It's hideous. They're classified isotopes. What does that tell us, I wonder? Some experts dispute the likelihood of a Chernobyl repeat. Some experts. They're not experts. They're the low-life from the industries. They're the public relation firms. And Japan's Nuclear Safety Agency refutes any Chernobyl comparison by saying there's absolutely no possibility of a Chernobyl meltdown event at Fukushima on the 15th, when this is what it looked like on the 15th, multiple meltdowns in a row. All of them, at least 100, to each reactor is 100 Chernobyls. You're looking at 36 reactors, probably 3,600 times worse than Chernobyl, but because you're talking about pure uranium, pure plutonium, and the reactor 3 was the mixed oxide fuel reactor. Decades of reactor cores stored at the top of the buildings, they're all gone because you don't have a repository anywhere. No, well, comparison of Chernobyl was a graphite reactor, it was a new reactor, it was a small reactor, it was 2 years old, it didn't have any common spent fuel pools or spent fuel pools at the top of the buildings. Each of the Fukushima reactors, this was never counted, reactor 4, had 2 fuel pools at the top of the buildings. They were old reactor buildings, they were pure uranium, pure plutonium, they were massive reactor cores, each of them. At the top of the buildings, there was around 8 reactor cores in the fuel pools, they're all gone. Workers in the Fukushima plant are being exposed to more radiation than those in surrounding areas. At least one worker taken ill from radiation, while others are being monitored. The perpetually evil World Health Organization, UN, same as IAEA or IRPA or UNSCLEAR and the IPRC or the rest of them. Japan Tuesday for taking the right steps to protect people from radiation. They panicked, the international community panicked, because if people went outdoors in the plume and dropped dead, how do you explain that? And then that would be the end of the nuclear industry. So they wanted people. There was 3,000 people died shortly after when they started finally evacuating them from the areas. They rushed them to the hospital and they died. And the industry come out, and still does it today, where they say, yeah, well, 3,000 people died from evacuations. But we see millions at a time evacuate from the supercell typhoons, the supercell cyclones, the supercell hurricanes we've never seen before, showing up one after another post-Fukushima. And we've never seen any kind of statistics like that pre-Fukushima or post-Fukushima, only in Japan, after 4 buildings with 8 fuel pools detonated. Hey, man, I'll tell you something. This industry, I can't comprehend the entire plan is not turned on this industry. I can't comprehend that. If they knew 100 of what you know right now, this entire planet would go after this industry with a vengeance. It would be brutal. This industry wouldn't be able to go anywhere. And that's what the industry got done to me. Now I can't go anywhere without people attacking me. And they're far from finished with me, I can tell you that much. And there's nothing I can do about it. They're having the time of their life, and destroy Dana, and then that's going to solve all their problems. There's no one left to tell the truth. No one left to teach the truth, I should say. I have to struggle every day. And I have to show up every day and go to work, because how do I sleep at night if I don't? How do I justify not going to war against this industry? In Japan, there was 865,000 extra cancers, excess cancers in the first year. Japan National Cancer Center says the number of patients rose by 865,000 in 2012, a year after Fukushima. They stopped releasing those statistics after that went viral. But not everybody got diagnosed. Not everybody has health care. And I can guarantee you another thing. Grown food right in a nuclear wasteland right alongside the 1-ton bags of radiation in a no-go zone for harvest. You know it's for harvest because they're not even wearing stupid, ridiculous paper suits. So it's for harvest. Should Taiwan hold referendum on food from Japan's nuclear wasteland before they're removing like they've already removed the restrictions in 2022 on Fukushima and surrounding prefectures, and now they're going to remove the restrictions around Tokyo. Tokyo should have been the first ones who are going to remove restrictions, not Fukushima. Fukushima should be the very last prefecture. And why would you remove restrictions on a prefecture where they picked up 30 million 1-ton bags in just 3% of the land? Most of that was farmland and the communities they wanted the complacent to move into. So according to BitChute, radiation is not killing all the species, it's 5G, Dana. Well, 5G wasn't around in the first 10 years, for instance, when the mass die-offs were taking place, was it? And to suggest that Fukushima never had any adverse effects, you might want to go down and talk to the 865,000 people that got cancer in just the first year. James put the hateful nuclear wonderland. I hope everybody goes over and watches that after. I'm going to play nuclear exceptionalism, because I want people to hear that song tonight, because I need something that makes me go, yeah, baby, because the nuclear industry wears me down sometimes, and I apologize to everybody. I get some upset sometimes. Maybe I'll do it every show for the next month. they censor me too much on this show. I'm just gonna. Have a nice night. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on the next show tomorrow night, hopefully. Have a great night. Take care now. And this is nuclear exceptionalism. You can find it at James Luce's site. I put a link in below to the same site, to the song we started off with. Take care.
They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safe as sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. They chase the sun, all fusion proud. Ignore the barrel stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket, while curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Chart is clean, while whales rolled up inside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Now the rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them, too many sins. Keep your son, keep your lab coat pride till you fix the